Hey everyone, it's Wowous. We're here with Cart Crash at the Crossroads. This is this week's Tavern Brawl in Hearthstone. This is the Tavern Brawl where you pick a hero, and then when you start the game, you get to pick one of three heroes to combine decks with. It's a completely RNG Tavern Brawl, so who knows what will happen, but we'll jump right in here and see what we get. What I'm going to talk about during this video primarily, though, is I want to chat about the meta of the game, and that is sort of the what decks are working well, how is the game health overall, and what the heck happened with this newest expansion. And I'm going to start off by giving you my opinion, which is I don't think that this expansion is been very fun. And what I mean by that is I don't think that I've enjoyed playing the game very much since this expansion has come out. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons for that, and we're going to talk about the decks that are working right now, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the cards and some of the problems around Legendaries and Epics. So to get started, I have mentioned in some previous videos, but if you're maybe not a frequent listener, I did not pre-purchase this expansion, which is the first time in a couple of years that I haven't pre-purchased an expansion. And the reason was that I found the last expansion to be not particularly exciting. As anybody who played in the last expansion knows, Warrior was really the deck to play, and there were a few other decks that you could play and you could be somewhat successful with, but Warrior was really it. And this expansion seemed like it was going to increase the power level a decent amount. And what I mean by that is with the quests, with some of the legendaries, they seemed all really great and strong, and it seemed like it was pretty obvious this was going to be a good expansion. That being said, I have found more recently that when I spend $50 or $70 or $80, whatever you end up spending on those pre-purchases, I don't feel like I get a lot from it. I kind of sat there and said, geez, if I'm going to spend that much money on a game, why buy this as opposed to any of the other, games that are out there, retail games that are $50, any of the other card games like Magic Arena or, whatever it is that you like playing. $50 is a full retail game, more or less. Or during a Steam sale, it's a ton of games. And so the question I had was really, is it worth my $50? And the reality is that I said, geez, I don't think it really is. And since the last expansion, I don't particularly enjoy it. So let's talk a little bit about the decks and the issues I'm having with it. So really, since this expansion came out, you can take a look at hsreplay.net. I'll put a link in the description below, but HS Replay looks at what are the most popular decks, what are the most popular cards in the game, what are getting played right now, and what's winning. And so in terms of win rate, there is no surprise here whatsoever. I should have put him in the middle, right? There's no surprise here, but Warrior is number one. And it has been since the last expansion. That Control Warrior deck has become more powerful now because of the taunt. So I'm playing a taunt Warrior deck. It's basically the only deck I can consistently win with in the game right now, and it's the world's longest games. They all go to basically fatigue, and it's not particularly enjoyable for me. I played a game the other day that went almost 30 minutes, and I lost at the end of the game. I had discovered a Mechathune and tried to pull that off, but wasn't able to kill it. And so I lost to fatigue at the end of the game. So it was, all in all, one of the most frustrating Hearthstone experiences I had. And I think many players are in that same boat of, you just kind of play and you're like, what is going on? This is not enjoyable in the least. That Warrior deck is a big problem, and it didn't change from last expansion. So more or less the meta is the same as the last expansion at the very top. Other popular decks right now that are winning, Murloc Paladin, which I don't see an awful lot, but it has a very high win rate. It's just under Control Warrior. Highlander, Hunter. Hunter is always going to be a popular deck because it's cheap and easy to play. Murloc Shaman, which I do have a Murloc Shaman deck, and I found that was very effective last expansion and continues to be very effective. It's a very quick deck, so you may be able to, with either the Paladin or the Shaman Murloc decks, if you can win the game before the Warrior can get going and get his taunt up or his armor up, then you can win. But you got to get through. If the game goes till turn 10, you're basically done. In my opinion. And then you see Combo Priest and Big Spell Mage and Control Mage are those next kind of tier 1 decks. So all in all, there are a number of oh, come on. No, Poisonous Cobra isn't too bad. So there are a number of decks, but nearly all of them are the same decks that we saw the last expansion. What we didn't see in reality was that the quests didn't really make a huge impact. Certainly some of the class legendaries were big. And there was a little bit of some of the neutral class, neutral cards that are non-class specific that were effective. So let's talk a little bit about cards. So what has worked well, what's being used in a lot of decks. So right now, according to HA's replay, no change in the top two cards. Ziliax, Snip Snip, still the two most played cards. No surprise there. They're both very overpowered. And again, I don't think they're going to get nerfed because why would you at this point? But yeah, I'm going to take him out. But there's not no changes really at the top there. The next card, number 3, is a new card, Zephyrus. So that's really like the popular card this expansion. It's being played in about 26% of decks right now. So you're talking about 1 of every 4 decks is playing this. And I think it's quite frankly mostly the decks that can use it, and most people that have it are playing that. We're going to drop him down. And just sort of being annoying here. Go face, I'm thinking. And then Siamat. I think that's how you pronounce it, Siamat. He's the Battle Cry, Gain 2, Rush, Taunt, Divine Shield, Wind Fury, your choice. He is the next best card right now in terms of play rate. But it drops kind of precipitously. He's 18%, where Zephyrus is 26%. And then you kind of get into this whole kind of mid-teens range cards. Questing Explorer, Life Drinker, Evil Cable Rat, Leroy, Arcane, Intellect, Doomslayer, Conjure's Calling. So those are really the top cards that are being played right now. Now the issue is that other than really Zephyrus, there's really not a must-have card from this expansion, but there are a lot of legendary cards that you need to have to play specific decks. So there's no class neutral legendaries other than Zephyrus that is really like a must-have, but there are a lot that don't get played as much on a percentage basis, but when you look at things like deck win rate, get played a lot. So Armadillo has a 60% win rate. So if you get that card out, you're most likely going to win. I could have gone lethal there, huh? Well, I can do it with this. Almost. And so what you're seeing now is basically you need all sorts of class legendaries, which is very, very expensive. Now, if you guys follow, which you may or may not, Activision Blizzard and their stock, the company did not do well over the past year. It's kind of been sliding in the wrong direction, especially when you read their earnings reports. And part of the reason for this, I think, is that they're losing the whales to some degree, and they're not getting many new users to Hearthstone at this point. And who can blame them? If you jump in this card game, how are you supposed to compete with anybody? There's really, even at level 20, you're getting smoked by folks that are golden everything. And we're going to take the lethal here and get the win. The abundance of strong class legendaries has made it nearly impossible to keep up with the game. Right, so I didn't pre-purchase, but I did use a lot of gold, right? I bought 50 packs, which is 5,000 gold. You do out the math, an average quest is going to be 50 gold. So every day you can get 50 gold. To get 5,000, you're talking about 100 days of playing, which is a third of a year, more or less, just under a third of a year. So that's about what you can get between the two between two expansions. And I got the one free legendary from the game, which was the mage quest for me. And then I got 2 legendaries in my pack openings. I got Armadillo, thank goodness. And then I got some other legendary that I've never played, and I forget which one it was, but I think it was one of the other quests, but it just is not something that I have sort of the deck to build around. And I'm not a free-to-play player, right? In the past, I've always, you can see here, I've got 40,000 gold. In terms of dust, I'm sitting up around 9,000 dust. So I'm not a free-to-play player. I'm not somebody who has every single card in the game, but I have the cards that I need in general to play and to be able to have a good time with a handful of decks. I'm now at a point where I can play two decks. Really, I can play Warrior, which I hate, but I play it because it's the only way I can seem to get wins every day. And you need the wins to get more gold, because if you don't win, for the most part, a lot of the quests require that. Now you can sometimes get the draw this many card quests or play this minion, under 2, whatever. But for the most part, you're talking about that you need to be able to win to complete the daily quest. So take a look quickly at my daily quest, right? Win with a priest or a warlock. Well, I don't have either of those decks running right now. The warrior I'll keep, and then, again, I'm keeping this one, win 3 times with the warrior. But it doesn't encourage me to jump into the game. We're going to open up this pack, see what we got from this week's Tavern Brawl. But I got 3 legendaries, right, from this expansion. That's not nearly enough to play any other deck. So I can play the warrior deck, and I have a Murloc Shaman, which essentially you don't need very many legendaries to play. You can play without that. So the problem with the meta is this: epics and legendaries have become very rare, but very, very powerful. There's been a lot of discussion on Reddit that epics should move into the same realm of so with legendaries, right? So we're gonna dust whatever we got there because we already have all those cards. With legendaries, you all know, basically when you pick up legendaries, you only get 1 of each, right? So you see here, you don't end up with 2 of these ever. You always get a new one before you get somebody they already have. But that's not true with epics. And you look here, just in terms of, again, I play mainly mage, hunter, a little bit of priest, but there aren't very many epics, right? And I'm, again, not a free-to-play player other than this last expansion. I have the warrior cards, I guess, so I can play that, but nothing else. And so the challenge that the game is into now is that you sometimes get 3 or 4 of the same epic before you get one of ones you don't have. If you don't have them, you need to craft them. If you can't craft them with the dust, and I'm not going to spend all my dust, this is only a couple of legendaries or a handful of epics, then I'm going to be screwed again next expansion. You almost have to keep over 5,000 dust at any given point, because if the rotation comes and there's another Ziliax that you need to be able to craft that card. If you don't have Ziliax right now, I don't know how you play. It's almost impossible. And that's why, in terms of percentages of decks, we see 54% of the decks playing Ziliax. He is a must-own card. And if you don't have that, it makes this very, very frustrating to play, because you're going to run into a Ziliax in almost every deck you play against. Over half the decks you play against, you're going to run into that. And the ones that don't use it are the ones that probably, quite frankly, aren't winning. Or they're a very specific deck, like a Murloc Shaman deck that's going to win before you even have to worry about a Ziliax coming out. But any sort of long-term deck, Ziliax is going to be in. I think they need to change that. I think the epics need to switch to where you can't get a third until you have 2 of each. I think the drop rates have to improve. The Reddit threads have talked about, right, on the drop rates. Most people that got 50 to 70 packs only got 2 legendaries. When you only get 2 legendaries, why are you playing? Is anybody going to spend $50 to get 2 legendaries? Or 3? You get 1 for free anyway. If I had spent $50 and gotten 2 legendaries, you're spending essentially $25 per legendary. And if you can want to count epics as some sort of cost, some sort of cost analysis, legendaries are not worth $25 to me. I'm not willing to dump that much money into this game. It's not particularly fun. I'm not having a ton of fun playing it. And until we see some changes where it used to be that rares were the cards, right? So legendaries are always super powerful. Everybody should have a handful in each deck, right? They should be usually very specialized, but have a very powerful thing. Epics, same sort of thing. They should be powerful. They should be something that you should want to play. And a lot of them, though, some of these, many of these are good, like for the hunter card, but some of these, it's am I ever going to use some of these epics? Certainly there are some here that you need, but there's many that it's I'm never going to play some of these epics. I think they need to rethink the dusting system. There's, again, it's too many class-specific legendaries. If you can't make these cards, you can't play the game. You can't play these decks competitively. And it's not even competitively. If you're rank 20 or you're rank 18 or rank 15, if you're up there, you're still playing against all the top decks. So what are you supposed to do? There's no real way to consistently win, which means there's no real achievement, which means, again, you're not going to get those cooler rewards like gold and rare cards as you end the month. And so it just becomes a frustrating experience. So those are kind of my thoughts. I'd say frustrated with the game right now. I'm going to be playing it here and there, but until I see some real change, I'm not spending my money on this game. And hopefully Blizzard takes that as a sign that it's concerning that I, as sort of an older person who has the money to spend on a game, is saying, I'd rather spend the money on a different game. I'd rather throw the money at Xbox Live Game Pass, or I'd rather throw the money at Magic the Gathering Arena, where I feel like I get more. Now, Magic the Gathering Arena is probably not the best example because it too has its own problems with rares and mythic rares, but from a Hearthstone perspective, this game has become, in my opinion, devalued, where I don't feel like I get any value out of it when I play it anymore. And I think it's the same problem that they're having in some ways with Heroes of the Storm. And it feels like there just isn't the attention and the sort of fan service being paid to it that it once was. I used to love playing Hearthstone, and now I enjoy it, but I find it more frustrating than I ever have before, with a few exceptions of times when individual cards are broken. But this isn't a matter of just like balance patches, I don't think. I think this is a matter of you need to rethink how the monetary component of this game works. I'm okay spending some money on the game. I'm not going to spend $50 to get 2 legendaries. I'm done with it. Especially when they're not even, you're not even going to get the 2 you need most of the time. I'm very open. I think they should do something like a suggestion I have for them, right, is if you pre-purchase a pack, you should be able to pick 1 legendary. All right, that's an easy thing, right? It's not going to give you everything you need, but if I can pick 1 legendary that I get to have for free, I would be much more willing to spend the money. As kind of foolish as that seems, that's a much bigger deal to me than getting 2 legendaries I don't need. So hopefully Blizzard thinks a little bit about that. Hopefully you have some thoughts about it. Please do leave them in the comments below. I appreciate you all listening. This is a bit of a rant, but I felt like it was important to talk about. And if you do have thoughts, leave a like in the leave a like if you enjoyed this, if you think I'm right on the right path. If you disagree, that's fine too. Leave a comment below if you disagree and you have a different thought about the monetary component of this game. But I think the game is broken, the meta is stale, and it's not particularly enjoyable to play at the moment. So that's my thought. If you have your own thoughts, leave them in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of content, definitely consider subscribing to my channel. I would very much appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.